Getting kind of late putting this video up, but we went out today. We took a look at the house once again and signed contracts and all that. So we're officially moving in on March 1st. So between now and March 1st, this is going to be the set, and then from there on, we should be in the brand new set. But between now and then, I will continue to work in the crap confines and give you guys as much content as I can, and look at things at the deadline. So at the deadline is an important time to look at things and look at which teams are relying on too few scorers and which ones have a ton of scoring going on right now. So we'll start with Anaheim. Anaheim's got 34 goals from their top three scorers. Top three. So top three scorers is what I measured. 34 goals out of 120. That percentage-wise is 28.3%. Now, Anaheim's number is lower than a lot of other teams, and yet the problem with Anaheim is they don't score enough. So while it's a low number overall, it's just low all around. So that percentage being 28% means they don't rely completely on your top three guys, but they don't really get reliable scoring overall. 10 plus goals. They've got three guys who have 10 goals or more right now in their lineup. They traded Aberg, of course, so he's out. 25 points or more, they have two players, and 50 points or more, they have zero. Now, the Arizona Coyotes, they have 33 goals from their top three players out of 132 goals scored. That's 25%. That is, I believe, the lowest mark on the board. Yes, 25% is the lowest number. 10 plus goals, they have five guys with 10 or more goals. They have four with 25 or more points and zero with 50 or higher. The Boston Bruins, 60 goals from their top three goal scorers out of 143. That would likely be a lot higher if Bergeron had played the whole year. Although their overall goals would be higher too. So their percentage is 41.9%. They've got five guys with 10 goals or more, five with 25 or more points, and two with 50 or more points. On the Buffalo side of things, 57 out of 140 goals have come from their top three goal scorers. That is 40.7%. Of course, 30 of those come from Jeff Skinner. Four players with 10 or more goals, five with 25 or more points, and one with 50 or more points. And that's, of course, Jack Eichel. Calgary, 80 out of their 190 goals have come from their top three goal scorers, which is 42.1%. So that's the highest amount we've seen so far. 10 plus goals, 7 of them. 25 or more points, 8 of them. 50 or more points, 5. That is the highest number on the board by a couple. There are some teams with 3 or more 50-point players, none with 5, and none with 4 either. So pretty solid season going on in Calgary. Carolina, 48 out of 140 goals have come from their top three goal scorers, or 34.2%. 7 players have 10 or more goals, 5 have 25 or more points, and 1 player, of course, that's Aho, with 50 or higher points. It's been scoring by committee in Carolina. They just need to score a little more. Chicago, 76 out of their 156 goals come from their top three goal scorers, which is 48.6%. So Chicago's problem isn't their star players, it's really been their depth, which is why they pick up a guy like Dylan Strome, and they pick up Perlini as well. 5 players with 10 or more goals, 6 with 25 or more points, and 1 player with 50 points or more. And, of course, that's Kane with 71. Patrick Kane, the season he's having. Colorado, 79 out of 169 goals comes from their top three goal scorers for 46.7%. That is one of the highest totals on the board. It's actually second. It's the second high, no, third. Sorry, third highest total. Chicago's second. We'll get to who's first. And it's predictable. You guys are ahead of me on this one. 5 players with 10 or more goals for Colorado, 6 players with 25 or more points, and 3 with 50 or more. So they are top heavy in scoring, but the depth is there as well. Columbus, I should say, 63 out of 154 goals from their top three goal scorers for 40.9%. 6 guys with 10 or more goals, 5 with 25 or more points, and 1 with 50 or more, and that's, of course, Panarin. Dallas, 50 out of 126 goals come from their top three guys, which is 39.6%, so very top heavy. Somebody's been saying that all year. 3 guys with 10 goals or more, and I'll go ahead and name them off for you. Ben, Sagan, Radulov. 4 players with 25 points or more, and of course none with 50. Zip. Detroit, 73 out of their 144 goals are created by their top 3 goal scorers for a total of 51 out of 145. I'm a line below. Oof, caught myself. 51 out of 145. That's 35.1% for Detroit. They have 6 guys with 10 or more goals, 5 with 25 or more points, and 0 with 50 or more points. So for Detroit, honestly, their scoring numbers aren't really that bad. They're only 9 goals behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they're not as top-heavy for scoring. It's been the rest of their game that they've had problems. Edmonton, here's where I've been jumping ahead to. 73 out of 144 goals comes from their top 3 guys. That's 50.7%. They've scored 1 less goal than Detroit has, and 22 more goals comes from their top 3 scorers than for Detroit. So it is an issue in Edmonton. They are the number 1 team when it comes to the most goals from their top 3 goal scorers. Notice I'm not going by lines, because lines tend to change, and I didn't want to get into that debate. I wanted to keep it simple. 4 guys with 10 or more goals in Edmonton, which again illustrates just how their depth scoring's been a problem. 3 players with 10 or more, or with 25 or more points, and 2 with 50 or more. So it's McDavid, it's Draisaitl, it's Nugent-Hopkins, and then, yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that one. Florida, 58 out of 152 goals, or a total of 38.1%, emanates from their top 3 goal scorers. They have 6 guys with 10 or more goals, 6 players with 25 or more points, and Zip with 50 or more, although Huberdeau's sitting at 49. LA, 36 out of 114 goals. Those totals are sad. 31.5% overall, 114 goals. Come on, LA. 4 players with 10 or more goals, 4 with 25 or more points, and of course they don't have anybody with 50. Minnesota, 50 goals out of 142 comes from their top 3 goal scorers. 35.2% overall. 6 guys with 10 or more goals, 8. That's a lot. 8 with 25 or more points, and none with 50. The Montreal Canadiens, 51 out of their 154 goals comes from their top 3 goal scorers for a 33.1% number. 7 guys with 10 or more goals. That depth is intimidating. 6 with 25 or more points. And it's intimidating because it means you can't just shut 1 or 2 guys down, right? So when you see 7 here, 7 in Carolina, 7 for Calgary on this side of the board, those are your teams with the really solid scoring depth, where more than one line can hurt you. So for people who look at Calgary and go, well, if it wasn't for Gaudreau, they wouldn't be any good. That's not a thing, because they've got 6 other guys, not named Johnny Gaudreau, who have 10 or more goals. And they have 7 other guys who've got more than 25 points. So we're not even getting into that first line. We're talking about the depth guys. It's pretty solid. Nashville. 51 of their 161 goals comes from their top 3 goal scorers. 31.6% overall. So that's pretty good as well. 5 guys with 10 or more goals. 8 players with 25 or more points, which ties them with Minnesota and Calgary for a high up until this point in the chart. The New Jersey Devils, 52 goals out of 140 comes from their top 3 guys, or 37.1%. 6 players with 10 or more goals, 5 players with 25 or more points, and none with more than 50. And there's none with 50 in Nashville either, which is surprising to me. Although injuries have played a large role in that. The injuries to Arvidsson and Forsberg being the 2 most obvious. The Islanders, 48 out of 147 goals comes from the top 3 guys for a 32.6% number, which is low, which means exactly what we thought about the Islanders. They have 8 players with 10 or more goals, 4 with 25 or more points, and nobody with 50 or more points. It is scoring by committee with the Islanders. It's a different line hurting you every night. And honestly, their defense and their goaltending have been just fantastic this year. So all of it adds up to a pretty intimidating team to play against, because who do you shut down? And if you say, well, just shut down Barzal, there are a lot of other players that can hurt you on the Islanders, not just Barzal. The Rangers, 50 out of 139 goals comes from their top 3 goal scorers for a total of 36%. They got four guys with 10 or more goals, which is low compared to a lot of the rest of the league, and 3 with 25 or more points, which ties them with the Edmonton Oilers for a low, and they're still one above the Anaheim Ducks, who just don't like to score points, I guess. And It's been an interesting season for the Rangers, continues to be, in that they're kind of in that middle ground. Are they going to try to load up and go for it? Do they still see themselves as a potential playoff team, or do they sell off? Odds are they sell off, but when a team's above 500 at the All-Star break, it could go either way. Now we'll find out Zuccarello got traded tomorrow or something. Ottawa, 62 goals out of 136 comes from their top three. That's a total of 45.5%. So top-heavy scoring with the Ottawa Senators. 7 guys, though, with 10 or more goals. 8 with 25 or more points. And 1 with 50 or more points, and that's Stone. So while we can all laugh at the tire fire that's the Ottawa Senators, the fact is there's some good scoring going on here. Now all they got to do is worry about the defense and the goaltending. And Nilsson played pretty darn well after the acquisition from Vancouver. I know he can't keep it up over a full season, but he doesn't have to. Just has to do it the rest of the year. It could be interesting to see where the Senators finish this year, how many points they get. Remember, last year they had 67, so anything above that's an improvement. Philly, 48 out of 139 goals comes from their top 3 guys for a 34.5% score. 6 players with 10 or more goals, 4 players with 25 or more points, and 1 with 50 or more. And that, of course, is Giroux. So for the Flyers, it is pretty decent depth overall, I guess. Because, again, it seems like the sweet spot for this should be about 33. Should be. I think if you're 33, 34, if you're higher than that, there's probably a lot of scoring going towards just certain players. I look at Dallas with 39, Florida with 38, of course Edmonton with 50. That seems to be, those are the teams that you have some more top-heavy scoring. Pittsburgh, 65 out of 169 from their top 3 scorers for a total of 38.4. 38.4% is high. That is a high total. And it again, when you're looking at that, you go, well, what's the depth like? Well, they have 7 players with 10 or more goals, so that's pretty good. They're behind the Islanders on that one, but they're tied with Calgary for that. 25 or more points. They have 6 there, which is, I think the average is 5, so they're right in along the lines of that. And 50 or more points, they got 3 players with that, with Malkin, Kessel, and Crosby. So overall, you can look and say, well, their top 3 scorers make up a huge portion of their goals, comparatively speaking to some other teams, but not overly bad. San Jose, 70 out of 187 goals comes from their top scorers, 37.4%. 10 or more goals, they've got 8 guys with 10 or more goals. That ties them with the Islanders for the number 1 spot. They have 10 players with 25 or more points. Nobody else in the league has that. So the scoring depth is there. San Jose, 1 player with 50 or more points, and it's Brent Burns, their defenseman, who ironically does not have 10 goals yet. St. Louis, 52 out of 139 goals are from their top 3 goal scorers. That's 37.4% overall. 4 guys with 10 or more goals, 4 with 25 or more points, and 1 with 50 or more. The scoring just hasn't been strong enough for St. Louis, but it's been a lot of things with St. Louis. It really has. And yet, because of the way that the playoffs are set up, they're not really out of it in the West, even though they're on pace to finish much lower than they did last year in points. Tampa, 78 out of 199 goals from their top 3. Let it sink in that they have 199 goals. The next closest on the board is Calgary with 190. And that 78 are from their top 3, whereas Calgary got 80. So 39.1% for them compared to the 42.1% for Calgary. And it's a pretty impressive total. 7 guys with 10 or more goals, 9 players with 25 or more points, and 3 guys with 50 points for Tampa. So overall banner season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And once you get up into 199 goals, it doesn't really matter how many are from your top 3 because you've got a pretty amazing attack. Next up is Toronto, 71 out of 174. So their number is 40.8% overall. They've got 8 guys with 10 or more goals, 6 with 25 or more points, and 3 with 50 or more points. So it's curious in that they have an 8, 6, and a 3. A lot of goals being scored. Maybe there's not as many assists for Toronto. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's a lot of unassisted goals. But either way, That 40.8% is high, but once you get into those contending teams, and we'll talk about that too. I'll go back over this again in a second. You know, sometimes you get to a point where it's like, wow, you've got some guys having an amazing season, and that's dragging you up. Vancouver, 57 out of 147. That number would be higher if not for Peterson's injuries. 38.7% overall. 4 guys with 10 or more goals. 3 with 25 or more points, which is tied for the lowest above Anaheim. And nobody with 50 or more points, again, because of the Peterson injuries. Otherwise, yeah, they'd have a 50-point producer there. So Vancouver's numbers overall are, again, I don't see them in the playoffs, but below 40%. Vegas, 49 out of 157 are from the top 3 goal scorers. 31.2% overall. 5 guys with 10 or more goals. 6 guys with 25 or more points. So overall, Vegas has a very spread out attack. And that's part of the reason why they are where they are right now. They're in a playoff spot. Washington. 67 out of 171 goals comes from the top 3 goal scorers. 39.1% overall. 5 players with 10 or more goals. 7 with 25 or more points. And 2 players with 50 or more points. So overall, the totals are pretty good for Washington. And finally, of course, Winnipeg. 69 out of 167 goals are from their top 3, which is a 41.3% number. 7 10 or more goal scorers. 8 25-point or more producers. And 2 50-plus scorers. So let's take a look at something. All right, so with asterisks added for playoff teams, Boston 41.9%, Calgary next 42.1%, Colorado 46.7%, Columbus 40.9%, Dallas 39.6%, Minnesota 35.2%, Montreal 33.1%, Nashville 31.6%, Islanders 32.6%. You know what's interesting with Nashville too is, of course, if Arvidsson and Forsberg don't get hurt for such a large portion of the season, that number would be higher. Pittsburgh 38.4%, San Jose 37.4%, Tampa 39.1%, Toronto 40.8%, Vegas 31.2%, Washington 39.1%, and Winnipeg 41.3%. So star power definitely drives teams to the playoffs. You look at the teams that are out, 38.7%, 34.5%, 45.5%, 36%, 37%, and there's, of course, Edmonton with 50.7%. So there you go. Just looking at overall scoring depth and then taking a look as well at the end and seeing if there's any correlation with playoffs. It looks like to make the playoffs, a lot of these teams are right near or a little above 40%. And I think that the ones that are below that, I think it's going to be hard to stop the Islanders. I think that Montreal could be tricky in the first round as well. Star players will usually take over after a first round, but a first round upset can be engineered by a team that has a lot of scoring depth. That being said, if the Islanders face Montreal in the first round, well, definitely one of them goes to the second. All right, there you go. Just a fun thing to look at. It's one of those at the deadline things. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I was going to add a bunch of other stats up here too, but then it just gets too crowded and it takes too long. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just tap it upon this video, and I'll talk to you again soon.